Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You're all very welcome to the Coffee at 11 show on this beautiful morning. Beautiful. Is it spring or summer? I'm not sure anymore, but it's a beautiful morning. Wherever you are, you're very welcome to the cafe. And in particular, I'd like to welcome my very special guest, Will Ryan, current publisher and proprietor of the Limerick Post. Please, Will, say hello to us and show us your coffee mug.
It's a pleasure to be here, Colm.
I love it. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. I love that. And you've got your very own branded mug. It would be a pity now, in fairness, if you didn't have a branded mug when you have a newspaper, right? So I'm really excited to chat with Will. Let me just tell you some of the stuff that I've gleaned about Will in recent times. So Will is second generation Ryan family, and he's the current editor and publisher, having started in the family business as a paperboy in his early teens. The paper is up and running since the 1980s, 1986, I think, and then he worked his way up, and in my opinion, there's nothing like grassroots knowledge. Congrats on that. Having worked in production while he was in school before going to college to study journalism and media, and after continuing stints in other media, including magazines and radio, he rejoined the family business, the Limerick Post, in 2002. And then following spells working in editorial, sales and accounts, he finally went on to take over the family business from his father in 2010. Since then, Will has helped the business expand its brand beyond print to include digital content, including podcasts and the very innovative local video shows, the Limerick Post show, which is fascinating. Over the years, the Post has informed and entertained the entire Midwest through about 48,000 copies printed every single week, with a readership of over 200,000. And on top of that, 100,000 plus social media followers. Some legacy. And something that, based on all of that, you will not believe about Will, is that in fact Will, publisher and proprietor of the Limerick Post, is in fact dyslexic. Will.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, indeed. How do we pull all that together? Will Ryan, great pleasure having you on the show. And in your own words, please, Will, go back to those early years. Tell us about growing up in a newspaper family and those early years. What prompted you to get interested in the family business at a young age, please?
Well, I think for me, because both my parents were involved in the business. My grandfather was actually involved with the Limerick Echo even before that. So it was, I had other family that were working in the business. I don't think there was anything else I ever thought I could do. Like people often said, had you considered your own path, or had you considered something else? And to be honest with you, the short answer is no. Like this was all I ever wanted to do. And I had a love of it from a very young age, and got to work with some fantastic people that just convinced me that this was exactly where I wanted to be and what I wanted to be doing. So it's been a fantastic journey, like it really has.
And Will, who was involved in the business back in those days? Your dad, your mum was involved. I think you said your uncle.
Yeah, my uncle was involved. There was Jerry O'Malley, who's actually the longest serving person that we have inside in the company. He's been with us since day one of the Limerick Post. So like absolute Trojan. I mean, one of the best assets we have. And I mean, honestly, the success comes down to the team itself as well, though. I mean, I think I learned very early in business that you surround yourself with people who are smarter than you, and they're the ones that'll help, continue on the business much better. So, and listening to them, that's what's kept me afloat, because newspapers in general have had very difficult times. So it has been a challenge, but I've had fantastic support.
I can't agree more. I think team is everything. And, I know Jerry. Jerry, of course, is a legendary figure around Limerick. You can't go anywhere without Jerry bouncing along, and he's always got a time to stop and chat. And, he's definitely a stalwart part of Limerick Post and, of course, Limerick City. But I'm just fascinated by the fact that at a very young age you realised you wanted to do. I'm sort of jealous of that, to be honest, right? Because
yeah, I was lucky.
Yeah, actually, just on that now, if I may, one of the reasons you popped into my mind when this Coffee at 11 show began to grow legs, I suppose, is I watched a Netflix program a film called The Post. It was about the Washington Post and Catherine Graham. And of course, you popped straight into my mind because hers also was a family business. And, and in that movie, we saw the business behind the production, if that makes sense, and all the go with that. So I have to assume it wasn't, necessarily silver spoon stuff. I have to assume it was a lot of hard work. Is that fair to say?
Yes. I find, like, don't get me wrong, I've been very lucky. I'm a product of nepotism in a way. I can't deny that is part of my success. It really is. I'd be wrong to say I got here all on my own hard work, but I would say that it's, how would I put it? It's sometimes going into a family business can be much harder in that sense, because you're trying to fight assumptions that are there. Oh, you're only here because, and it means that it is that kind of cliche. You have to work twice as hard just to prove that you should be there. But again, I was blessed with the people I worked alongside right from the very beginning when I went in there. These were people that kind of never saw me as that, and always tried to work with me and always tried to help me and teach me. And that was some of the benefits of working in all the different departments under fantastic people. I mean, geez, I didn't inherit all the knowledge of the business, but I was very blessed with a lot of family businesses. You have a situation where you can have the owner, the founder, who can be very protective of that and doesn't want to pass on that knowledge and can be very judgmental towards the next generation of not having that. I was blessed with my father, where he was very much, he wanted me to know everything, understand everything. There was nothing that was kept from me, and the sooner he could pull me into it, the quicker. And that helped a great deal. And the sooner that he could basically say, this is your problem now. No, I mean that in a joking kind of sense, but it was genuinely, it wasn't a case where even after I took over, that he was trying to get involved, or he was trying to, but what he was fantastic at is being there for help and support if I ever needed it. And that gives you great confidence. You can take over something like that, and it's a huge responsibility, because it's not effectively yours when you inherit something. You've taken on a legacy and you want to protect that legacy, and the same for all the people working there and everything. So that there's a point that you reach where with my dad, that relationship remained where if I was in doubt, I could pick up the phone. I still had access. He was still alive and still in my life. So it was very easy to run ideas by him and get that kind of comfort, especially in those initial years where you'd have a lot more doubt. And now it's, I mean, we're still as close. It's great. In fairness, now when we talk about the business, it's more me just ranting about my day. He cares a lot less. But,
I love it. That's a lovely story. That's a very warm story. I think we all sort of lived through that with you for those few minutes, Will. A couple of things that I want to reflect on, if I may. The nepotism thing, it's a word, right? At one level it makes sense, another level it doesn't, because it is the family jewel. You also said, well, I don't know if you said these words, but it struck me that the Limerick Post it doesn't really belong to you. And
exactly, yeah.
It belongs to the people of Limerick, yeah. Right?
It was around before me, and hopefully it'll be around long after me.
Absolutely. So you're just custodian,
correct?
Right, which is great. So, but the nepotism thing doesn't really fit that, because the family want to pass it over into safe hands, and you will want to pass it on in safe hands, because I've always believed in brand, systems and people, and the Limerick Post is a brand par excellence, okay? You've got great systems to run the Post, obviously, and great people to implement those systems, and that's what you need to keep alive. And you need to, keep that going and keep breathing new life into it, which is why I'm really excited about the podcast and the Limerick Show. I think it's a wonderful initiative. I also think, if I may say, because I've seen other family businesses over the years where somebody's grown up in the business, I get that point, by the way, that you actually, as a family member, have got to work twice as hard to gain the respect of somebody who's not family. 100%. Because there's always this thing, yeah, your man or your woman only got that because, right? So you actually have to put the effort in. The other part that I think was beneficial to you, if I may say, is you left the Post and you went off and you cut your teeth elsewhere in magazine and radio. And by doing that and coming back in, you already bring with you a level of credibility, if you like, that you would have missed out on had you not done that. So hats off to you. So really great stuff. It's lovely. So thank you for that. So come here, things are growing and going and everything's going swimmingly. Bring us up to the Post. Bring us through the last number of years to the Post, the break into digital, the Limerick Post show, and bring us right up to COVID, please.
Well, I think in more recent years, and it's a strange thing, it goes back to the kind of legacy thing and taking on a legacy, that in the initial years, I felt completely more like the custodian, and I didn't really want to change what was already in place for fear that it would go wrong, or, you know, it would have bad impact, or there'd be pushback. And then as time went on, and again, with a lot of encouragement from my dad, he was constantly pushing me to kind of look at making it my own, as in put your own mark on it. What he did was in his time, and it was relevant to him at that time. Whereas, so the more, I suppose, comfortable I got in the position, and the more comfortable I got in what I was doing, then I started thinking more along the lines of, well, what's the type of content that I like, and what's the type of content that I want to consume? And it started thinking of it in that sense. And so in the same way that the kind of stuff that we cover in the paper are right through to, I like podcasts. I figured, you know, there should be some local podcasts. The main reason behind things like the Limerick Post show was I always found it very frustrating that for a lot of the television that we get in Ireland, if it's RTE or it's any of the others, the main focus is around Dublin. We're lucky when they might shine a spotlight on Limerick, and I just felt for a city of our size, why don't we have something highlighting all the good things that are happening in Limerick, and all the innovations and all the amazing people, that, you know, there should be something that is highlighting this on a weekly basis. And that was part of that inception. Before, that would have been very difficult to do due to technology. You'd need a big studio. I mean, you remember when Sky News even had their headquarters in the Dock Road there for a while. Like, that takes huge cost. Technology has changed that now. So it's much easier. It's really, you're just trying to find talented people. And I'm very lucky now with Cian Reinhardt and Megan Scully. They're exactly what was needed. They're pioneers in that area. So it's great.
Again, I'm going to just reflect on some of the things you said there, if I may. Hats off to your dad for encouraging you to not keep things just as they always were, you know, to put your own stamp on it. I think that was brave and big, and correct. And then you went on to say that you decided that you asked yourself, what type of content do I like, right? And how do I want to consume that content? And it wasn't necessarily in a hard copy.
It's not just print.
Absolutely, it's not just print. And so that's why you've taken the brand down different avenues. I also fully agree with you. I'm from Dublin, moved to Limerick in '98. By the way, I moved to Limerick in '98, right? And I knew nobody, so I decided a bit ago, and I wanted to get the local newspapers to see who's who and what's what, right? And I tried to buy the Limerick Post, and they wouldn't sell it to me, right? Right? They said, take it with you. I was, what? It's the first time I ever saw a free sheet, right? I didn't know it existed, coming from the smoke. Anyway, so but it's been a staple. Got all my news through the Post over the years since 1998. Anyway, national media is a bit Dublin-centric for sure. Okay, and it's sort of natural. I don't know that it's malicious. I think it's just natural.
No, of course, yeah.
You did exactly the right thing. You said we'll take control of it here. You're absolutely right. The cost of production, etc., the requirements for a big production or any form, not big, professional production, have come right down, and you've grabbed hold of that, and you're absolutely right. Cian and Megan, fantastic. And by the way, you weren't lucky. You attracted them because you're great people. That's fair enough, yeah? We create our own.
I'll take that. But bringing up then to the situation with COVID now, so the secret of our model is that free, in the sense that what engages people to the product in terms of advertising. So all our revenue comes from advertising, and the attraction to that is a large audience. So if you're a business, or if you're looking to do something in Limerick and you want a lot of people to know about it, you're willing to pay to engage with that audience. And everything we're doing with the digital is just trying to grow that audience. It's not trying to compete with it. It's just trying to include more of an audience and a different demographic and so you can keep giving our own customers more options in terms of engaging with their customers. But what's happened now with COVID, which is like because it's all based on advertising, that's massively affected us obviously at the moment, because we can't sell the paper. So if your revenue is based entirely on that, we're taking a hit right now for sure. I mean, I think I said to you yesterday when we were briefly chatting, we've no ability to make money right now, but what we can do is earn some goodwill. And we know that, like, we're deemed as an essential service. We might as well act like one. We might as well provide the services that we have been for so long, and keep trying to produce as good a product as we can for as long as we can. So I mean, that's where we are right now. We're just waiting this out like a lot of other businesses, just hope it improves.
Yeah, the phrase you used yesterday and you said it again today was we can't earn money at this time, but we can earn goodwill, and I think you're doing that in spades, and we feel for you. We feel for you. And I think let's applaud the Limerick Post for keeping the fires lit, because it cannot be easy, and it really is the business dipping into its own coffers somewhat in this period. And God, this period will only last a short time longer. We don't know what's going to happen, but in the meantime, it's up and running. I also love the fact that the digital avenue, it's about attracting new audience, but it's also about serving the existing audience, the changing demographic. Whether we like it or not, Will, you and I were getting older, right?
Yeah.
So we've got to skate to where the puck is going to be, and the younger audience want digital. They want to consume it in their own way, in their own time, and you're doing all that. And you're giving people options. You're giving people options, and that, in the long term, has got to be attractive to advertisers out there. No matter what demographic they want to go after in the Midwest, Limerick Post is the place to go, I would suggest. So, prior to COVID, am I right in thinking about 48,000, or maybe even still 48,000 units?
Yes. So, the amazing thing about that figure is that's the audited figures. So that's the Audit Bureau of Circulation gives us a certification. They do an audit every year to confirm that we have all this. So this is the checks between the shops that get them. Every shop has to have a signature. Every paper is accounted for, and the same with the door-to-door service. So there's checks for all of this. So, and with ABC, there's very few papers that are still audited, simply because for a lot of paid-for papers that have been in a free fall of decline, you're not really going to pay an independent agency to tell you how much your circulation is dropping. But I mean, this year we were 10,000, I think, shy of the Irish Times ABC certified, and that's impressive. Yeah. I don't know if it says a lot about us or just shows that some of the nations are struggling at the moment now. But wow. It's certainly we do have a fantastic reach in Limerick, but it's due to the support that we get here. It's great.
Yeah, it's part of the fabric, no question. 10,000 shy of the, did you say the Times?
Yeah, the Irish Times, yeah.
The Irish Times. So that's a phenomenal.
I mean, to put in perspective, like even the Irish Examiner is under 30,000 now. I think they're in the kind of mid to late 20s. So that just gives you a picture of how big our circulation is by comparison. Now they're out daily, whereas we're out weekly, but it's per copy, we'll call it, or per edition.
No, it's great. It's great, and I'm delighted you gave us those numbers, because we wouldn't have known. We're coming at this. In fact, I'm going to ask you to explain ABC, if you don't mind, because it trips off your tongue. Yeah. You all know. So
the Audit Bureau of Circulation are an independent body that's basically, so rather than people often use the word readership, and the problem with readership is there's no definition, there's no multiplier, you could just make it up. I could say I have a readership of 10 billion, and and all you're doing there is you're saying, well, it's a couple of million people per household are reading it. You can just make it up as you go along. The idea of the ABC was to get certified for every copy. So that like I said to you about signatures, there's checks. So like, let's say, for example, if it's the same way you'd get a financial audit, all the figures are checked. So even if it's for a household, they do spot checks to make sure someone's got their paper. They'll do spot checks with the shops to make sure they're getting the quantities that they say they're getting, they're signing for. So it takes a lot to get certified, and it's expensive, and it's a rigorous it's time consuming. But for a lot of the larger agencies, that's traditionally what they always look for. So the other term you'll often hear is a publisher statement, which again, it's just me saying how many copies I think we have. Again, that's really interesting information for outsiders. We don't know this stuff, and you're right. Anybody could make up numbers and tell us anything. It's really interesting to hear you say earlier, then, now that I have a clearer understanding of ABC, that some publications don't get their stuff audited because they don't want to be paying somebody handsomely to tell them that their circulation is dropping. Yeah. Right?
I get it. Okay, come here. So you're in COVID now. You've already shared with us that you're earning goodwill at this time, and I believe you are. Congratulations, and keep it up. And I hope you can keep it up as long as COVID lasts. And I hope that Limerick, and believe that Limerick and the Midwest will get back behind you when the time is right, because everybody needs to restart. Everybody's going to be coming looking to get their message out there. So hats off to everybody. We wish everybody success in that. So pushing yourself forward to some days post-COVID, whenever that's going to be, do you want to hazard a guess at when we'll be back up and running as an economy?
Well, that's a very difficult question. I to be honest with you, I think that the way this is going right now is we're probably going to have a few cycles of this. We're going to see restrictions, relax. You're going to have businesses open for a period. You're going to start to see the numbers increase, and you're going to see them shut things down again for a period. And we could have 2 or 3 cycles of that before we get a vaccine. That'd be my gut on it. I don't think there's going to be I think when we first heard COVID and we knew we'd have to shut down for a while, the idea seemed very quickly, oh, that's fine. We just, like a lot of business, we shut down, it's 3 months, and then the tap will turn back on, everything goes back to normal. I think the more we learn about this, the more we realize that's probably not going to happen. You're going to have this contraction and expansion over a few months. And the difficulty for businesses right now, I mean, like ourselves, it's been able to scale to that and adapt to being able to find new ways of doing business and new ways of continuing to engage with your customers in this new world that we're dealing with social distancing and everything else. So there's a difficult kind of trick there. But I think the amazing thing about a time like this is it's when innovation just explodes, because everyone is trying different things that they never would have before. It's like before we've looked at people working from home. I kind of said, yeah, it's not really a runner. And yet now it is. It's fun. It seems to be working fine. We still have the paper out every week. There's going to be issues, but it's not until you're in the middle of it that you start to work out these problems and you're forced to problem solve. And I think that's what crises like this do. So you'll find very different businesses form out of this crisis. There'll be people who might lose their job and they'll be trying to find new ways that they wouldn't have been forced to previously. So I think you'll see some amazing things come out of this. But it's going to be very difficult for a lot of businesses. I mean, one of the schemes I'm involved in at the moment is the Livable Limerick scheme with the Lean on Me, and the idea is here it's just to try and give businesses support, and it's buying a voucher now and giving them the cash so they have some startup capital for reopening. And everyone who's buying a voucher is taking a risk. Everyone who's buying a voucher is kind of going, well, it's just I want to see that business be there when I return. I don't want it to be a big multinational that's taking it over or whatever. These are businesses, local small businesses that we're proud of and are part of the character of the city, and we want to kind of support them. And it's things like that just it happened within 3 weeks. Like, it's an incredible thing to get off the ground, and just a couple of Zoom calls. Most of us involved had never met, and then all of a sudden, this website is going. I think we passed 55,000 today in money just raised for local businesses. Yeah, it's great. It is. It's fantastic. So, but again, it's something that never would have happened if not for this crisis. None of us would ever got together. None of us would have given up so much time knowing that, like, we're all doing it voluntarily. None of us are making any money out of it. It's just a way to help. And like, we all have selfish reasons. We want these businesses to be here in the future. And even for me, a lot of these businesses are all Limerick Post clients. I want them to be around to be able to do business with us in the future. That
doesn't make it selfish, that means you're
sure.
Honestly, it's really good. A rising tide lifts all boats. We can't
absolutely
in isolation and silos. A couple of things you said there. Innovation just explodes in a time like this, and you're absolutely right. Had anybody said, right, send all your workers home and have them work remotely and you'd be as efficient or almost as efficient, we all would have said, oh, that can't happen, right? And of course now it's happening, and it's become the next normal somewhat. Really interesting. So it came up recently, crisis doesn't create character, it reveals it. Crisis doesn't create character, it reveals it. And I think that's happening, and we're seeing people for who they are in every sense. And that's a really lovely idea, that Lean On Me. Just call out the URL for that, if you wouldn't mind, and Tim will put it.
Yeah, it's leanonme.eu.
Leanonme.eu. Folks, check that out. That sounds fascinating. And so it's where somebody drops £100 into some business that
So I mean, it was Joe Brooks and John Moore that originally kind of came around with the concept, and then roped like myself, Sean Ryan from eLife, who developed all the tech for it. Grid Finance came in to help with the managing of the finance and the transfer of the money and all that. You had sellers that helped us with all the legal things to make sure we weren't goosed. Sean Golden, there was a few of us that just got on board. And but the main concept behind it was that you're basically just giving someone cash now to redeem it later. So, and the amazing thing about it, it's not even the cash that I think is the big thing for businesses. Their response to this has been very much, my God, it's when you're shut down and when you're closed and you're thinking, am I going to reopen? It's something like a small gesture of someone saying, listen, there's €10. And I can't wait to see you back in business, and I'm going to spend that €10 with you. That makes those businesses kind of go, yeah, we have to get back. We have to see this through, you know. And it's been heartwarming hearing those stories come back. It's been really nice.
It really is a wonderful idea, and is unique to Limerick.
Yes, but now we're looking at expanding it out. We've had interest from lots of other counties now that want to roll it into their areas. So. We're looking at that. I mean, it's scalable, but you know, there's still work involved. And we like LIT have offered volunteers and everything. It's been great. Like the support has been amazing, you know. So this is good.
It really is fantastic. I saw Sarah giving you the bus there. Great idea, and lovely to see something that's Limerick born, that can take legs and go elsewhere. So yeah, great stuff. Really has been a fascinating conversation with you. I loved, by the way, if I may, because a man like you, a newspaper man, right? Newspaper man, I think that's a very special moniker, very special title, I think, right? You're a newspaper man, and there are very few newspaper men out there, or women, right? So I think you're sort of at the center of all of life, right? That's the way I'm seeing it. So to hear you talk about your view, given your perspective of COVID, I think is really interesting. Really interesting, and it has credence, dare I say it. Want to comment on that?
Life has to go on, and I think we always find a way. I think that it's incredible seeing what people are doing right now, trying to adapt and it's great, especially in Limerick. I think there's been amazing stuff being done here to try and help out in this situation.
It's great. In fairness, I moved down here in 1998, not knowing much about the place, and Midwest has become my home, you know, my spiritual home. And because I've always found Limerick a very easy place to do business in. That's the best way I can describe it. You can pick up the phone to anybody and get in touch with anybody, right? And I just love that. And everybody's willing to, have a cup of coffee and point in the right direction. So boola bus to Limerick Inc. Right. Before we go to Q&A from the floor, it's been lovely having the conversation, absolutely lovely, and Will, thank you for your time this morning. Before we go to Q&A from the floor, Will, I'm going to ask you for one tip that you would give to your nearest and dearest. You get through COVID best, come out the far side best, in best shape by doing blah. What's that blah for you, please?
Ooh. I think it's getting to that point where, like, if I'm trying to give anyone advice now, it's just knowing that this is temporary. You know, to get in that headspace and know that we'll be out the other side of this. It's not that it is that thing of life goes on. Because I think otherwise you can start just worrying. You could just get into a cycle of worrying. And I think I've been fortunate to try and avoid that. So it's just things will always carry on, you know. And the key right now is we're all doing this for one reason. It's saving lives. Sometimes you can forget that when you're worried about the financial side and when you're worried about what's going to happen. But, you know, I think let's just remember that. That's...
well said. And, you actually brought it back to basics just there towards the end, right? It's about saving lives. And Liam Lynch picked up on that immediately, absolutely. Because I think at the very start, perhaps I'm speaking for myself here, but at the very start, that was very patently obvious, and we were all on our best behavior for those reasons. As it's gone on, I just wonder, well, thankfully, we never saw the curve that was predicted might have happened, but I think that's because...
That's because of what we're doing, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. It also speaks to what you said earlier, that you think there might be a number of rounds of this, that if we loosen the belt somewhat, we'd end up having to tighten it again and so on. Very interesting, very strange times. We'll be looking back at 2020, in years to come and saying, do you remember when? Interesting, interesting. Okay, listen, that was lovely, and thank you for that tip for us all. Who would like to ask this gentleman a question from the floor? Bridge.
Hi, William. Thank you so much for being here this morning. It's been really intriguing for me as a former journalist many years ago to listen to a young book.
Thank you.
It's very interesting. There's two things, because I have to leave this meeting early, unfortunately, as I explained to everybody. And I really apologise for that, because I wish I could be here all day. But anyhow, when I was a journalist, right, I came from the streets with no history of writing or of even books as a child or anything else. And I was always interested in the country and rural people, which I still am. With the COVID right now, the older people have been ostracised, they've been isolated, they live on nostalgia. I have a little cottage here, as you can see, and I'm into heritage and everything else, so you can see by the dresser even. And when people come in here, the older people, they just want to talk about the country. Now, when I was a journalist, against the wishes of my editor at the time, I had to fight to go down the country for them to believe me. And I covered every single part of Ireland, including Limerick. And the response I got was huge from the older generation. To me, I'm in my 50s now. They were in their 70s and their 80s. And they really wanted to know about, and newspapers then were completely Dublin based and still are, to be honest. I really believe they are. But there's two things I wanted to talk to you about. And one is just a quick example. I remember interviewing Michael Harton at the Post, who went on an alcoholic odyssey, which people loved reading about. They loved reading about drink. They loved reading about the stories of people, the heartache they had, whether it's a farmer or a poet or anything else. And I remember I spent 3 days because I used to spend a lot of time with people, not like the young journalists from schools now where they go out with a PR person. But I'd spend 3 days in Newcastle West with Michael. And I came back, great story, not to do with me, to do with him. Great story, revealed himself extraordinary, not just a poet. And when I came back, there was a Benson and Hedges advertisement that was going on the page that was going to knock like 800 words out of the best part of the article. I had to fight for that, and unusually successfully. But the reaction to the article later on about Michael was huge. And then they realised suddenly, or they clicked, or they said, oh, right, okay, this is actually working. People do want to hear about older people. They just don't want to hear, because the Sunday Independent, as you know, is all about blondes, sex, and titillation, generally speaking, apart from people like Jean Kerrigan and all those people, the good journalists. But it was a different time. It was a time up when you were an honourable journalist, you were a writer, you were a news person more than a journalist, and your word was your word. So I left journalism because I had great times there. I have no bitterness whatsoever, but I found that the rural connection was being dissolved, absolutely dissolved. And the people who really mattered, the people really wanted, they don't want to hear about Marty Whelan or Johnny Logan. Like RT is kind of an analogy of the whole thing, really. It's a microcosm of bad journalism. The same people have been interviewed, the same people on Brian Tubridy. People want new faces. They want new lives. And they're all over Ireland, literally dotted in every single corner of the country. And I know that you are coming with the family, but you're a really good example of it. So just my advice is just keep the country in the news. Keep the little stories about the little people who the most ordinary lives have ordinary lives on the outside, have extraordinary little gems of stories. And keep the nostalgia going. We need nostalgia. We need.
If I may invite a round of applause for Brighidmclaughlin McLaughlin. And it's time for full disclosure here, right? I fell in love with this woman's writing many years ago, right?
Never could have told him.
No, I did many years ago. I was telling the team this in the last week. In the Sunday Indo, and you always had really interesting stories. There was a sort of a darkness to them, a melancholy at times, but they were very real. And so when you and I connected recently, I was a bit sort of, oh my God, it's starstruck, to be honest.
Starstruck about it. I'm a country girl, totally a country girl, and I'm obsessed with the country. Even though I live in Dalkey, very posh spot, in this very small house, I just can't wait to get in the car to get down there, you know.
Happy days.
I'm so sorry I have to leave, William. But listen,
it was a pleasure.
Best of luck to all of you, and I'll see you all tomorrow.
Happy days. I'm going to hand over to Princess Shelley. Princess Shelley, what's been going on in the cafe, please?
Oh, a big smile from me anyway. I love your interview, Will, you know, and again, I kind of repeat myself. Like you see, we've got someone coming on from the Limerick Post, and we're going to chat to them the following day, and you develop certain expectations, and you know, I found myself swelling up there with a little bit of emotion when you were the altruism and the honour surrounding the Lean On Me initiative. There is just phenomenal, and that reboot fund, I was finding myself thinking, wow, that is huge. That's a huge legacy there. And I saw everyone nodding and applauding, and it was just lovely. And I did also make a note as well, which I thought, again, we were deemed an essential service, so we may as well act like one. Love that. Love it. Okay, we have Tim has put on all the links there, everybody, to access for the website, for the Limerick Post, and the Facebook and the Instagram. And he also, when Colm mentioned that when you were talking about the Lean On Me, that's up there too. So do log in, guys. Do have a look at those portals. Anne, who's joining us today, just on the pre-show, she's not in the cafe now. She maybe has had to go. She was giving us a little bit of language lessons at the start. It's always lovely, our global audience. And Anne said, hello, I've loved to learn about the Limerick Post and how it works. Love this informal and relaxed way to meet interesting people. Thank you to you all, and wishing you all a wonderful day. So she popped in while she got, and I thought that was lovely. So thank you very much for that comment, Anne. That was nice, Will, wasn't it? And then Katrina O'Brien, she's our editor-in-chief. She's joining us kind of dark because she's running around filling people's orders that are going into O'Mahony's at the moment. She's working very hard. And she has said, when we were talking about the Lean On Me initiative and that all-important funds that are supporting the local businesses there, she said it's especially helpful for businesses who may not necessarily have a website where they can sell vouchers. Katrina has received a gift voucher to her favourite cafe where she normally goes at lunchtime during normal times. And she's really looking forward to heading back to the Bedford townhouse sometime soon. So Katrina popped that in, and she really thought that that was a really great initiative. So, and she also mentioned there that it was lovely, the interaction there with Brigitte coming on as well. I thought that was very nice. We had a great laugh there. She was a great contributor to today's show. So that's all our comments so far. I think we do have time. If anybody would like to ask a question, now is your time to raise your hand like this. I think we'll go to our final question of the interview with Tim.
Thanks, Shelley. Just have a quick one, Will. I was wondering about your thoughts about the Irish tradition of storytelling and the old Shanachie tradition. They passed down traditions over thousands of years that up to very recent times was the source of our culture, for want of a better phrase. And I was wondering about your opinion around the role of Irish media, journalists, authors and that kind of thing in keeping that tradition alive, because as these Shanachies move on to the mortal realm, so to speak, we're losing an awful lot of our history. And I was wondering if you had any thoughts around that.
It's strange because I'm as much as I'll use social media as a good way of promoting ourselves and all that, I found it in some ways good at storytelling, and in other ways very bad, very poor. Like it can give you a very poor reflection of what's going on, or it's sometimes depending on where you can go. But I think in terms of storytelling, this is where good writers, good journalists have a real responsibility to be able to give someone a snapshot at that time, and to be able to, because I think there's no one going back in 10 years going through news feeds, as in the social media feeds, and kind of going, oh, that's what was going on. There is still that responsibility for especially for local media, because you can have national media cover what's happening in the country as a whole, and it in some ways can be very insular to, as I said, to Dublin. But each city and each town and each village have their own stories, and with the lack of media and more and more, because a number are going to close as a result of this, and some have already, there is a question around who is going to tell that story. If you don't have local media, are we just handing it off to Google and Facebook and hoping that they'll step up somehow, hire journalists, or So I do worry about the future of journalism. I think that there are problems there that have not been solved. And I think we thought there was this idea around the time when the internet came along and social media started bubbling, where it's like, well, it's okay because digital revenue will replace, and it never did. It never came close to it. I'd say digital revenue accounts for less than 5% of our revenue. So it's never going to be the solution, unfortunately. No one has fixed that yet. So the only ones making money in that realm are your huge conglomerate, your Googles, Facebooks, and Amazons, and I think there is a worry for storytelling especially in Ireland, if we don't have those storytellers.
Tim's great for the perceptive questions, right? And but that was a lovely response, and you sort of answered a question that was bubbling in my psyche, which was around where do you see the future of print media? But you sort of answered it in a funny sort of way. The industry can't do without it at this time, and really interesting times ahead. Will, what do you think?
I think we've been very, very lucky that free models haven't been hurt as bad as paid for papers. I think one thing that the internet changed was people didn't want to pay for their news anymore. And luckily with the Post, they didn't have to. That was being subsidized. I mean, people forget that every ad you see in our paper is supporting local journalism. Every business that puts in, even right down to the anniversary, it doesn't matter. They're all supporting local journalism. And there's something worrying that might happen if like for us right now, it should be a temporary issue. It's just a revenue because all our clients are shut. They can't spend money because they can't let people know they're even open for business. As that changes, hopefully things will get back to some kind of normality for us. But it is a worry for a lot of models. It is I do worry about the future of journalism. I think they haven't solved it. No one has come close to solving it yet.
Okay, yeah, and I don't think any of us envy you the task, you and your peers. Interesting one. Is it a fair question to ask? I loved what you said, and I'd never thought of it in those terms, that every ad that is placed in the Limerick Post pays for journalism.
Yep.
Is there a fair question to ask? What's the split between story and revenue producing ads? In terms of paper.
Well, it's funny. I always used to make a point that part of the reason for our success that people didn't see was the ads tell the other half of the story of what's happening in the city. So even if you're not writing about it, it's what's on in Dolan's in the weekend. It's telling you another story of what's happening in Limerick. Sometimes it's just offers or whatever, but that's relevant to people. Like there's a reason why advertising works. There's a reason why some people will read the paper for the ads, because they want to know what's going on. It tells the other parts of what's happening in the city. So, to me, you can't have one without the other. If you were just, if we had no ads at all, I don't think it's telling the whole story. Right now, we're nearly doing that, but I think they are essential. They're part of it.
Congratulations, lovely chat. Thank you for coming into the cafe and joining us on the Coffee at 11 show. Ladies and gentlemen, Wiliam Ryan, Limerick Post. Let me tell you before you all disappear what's happening on the Coffee at 11 show tomorrow, and that is a friend of mine for many years, Sharon Colopy, is coming in. And Sharon has a beautiful business and it's got a beautiful name. It's the Soul's Sanctuary. The Soul's Sanctuary. So looking forward to meeting Sharon tomorrow and hearing all about holistic wellness and mindfulness. So please, if you've got time tomorrow, give yourself an hour of holistic wellness and mindfulness and come in and meet the lovely Sharon Colopy. In the meantime, mind yourselves. I want to thank Princess Shelley for producing today's show, our junior guest, head of guest services, by his own admission, Tim Kelly, the wonderful Katrina O'Brien, who makes this all beautiful at the end of the day. And of course, Eamon Smith, our thoughts are with you, our friend, as you say goodbye to your mom, Betty. Finally, Will Ryan. Namaste.
Let's see you guys. Thanks again.